Sometimes people ask me, how should I keep the Sabbath, or how do you keep the Sabbath? What do you do on the Sabbath? So I thought we would talk about that today. And first of all, I would like to define the Sabbath. I mean, besides being the fourth commandment, which all of you can look up very easily, and you should be familiar with the commandments. They are in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. You can see them listed 2 times there. The fourth commandment says to work 6 days and to keep the 7th day holy, to not do any work on the 7th day. Not you or anyone in your household or any worker for you to do any work or sell or buy on that day. And then the Sabbath is talked about many times throughout the whole Old and New Testaments. It's mentioned hundreds of times even in the New Testament, whereas the first day of the week, which would be the equivalent of Sunday, is only mentioned, I think, twice, and not in reference to any type of substitution for the Sabbath or exchange for the Sabbath. So we know that that hasn't changed. But let's take a look at a few scriptures. One of which is keeping the in Leviticus 23, it's talking about the holy days. And the very first holy day that's mentioned, which will be interesting to you, because these are holy days. Some are solemn, some are celebrations, they're feasts. They're when you have a better food maybe, and you celebrate and honor Yahweh. They all point to Yeshua the Messiah. The first one, what it says first in Leviticus 23:1, and Yahweh spoke to Moses, speak to the Israelites and tell them, these are Yahweh's appointed times, his holy days. They're not the Jews' holy days, they're Yahweh's, which you must proclaim as holy assemblies, my appointed times. The first one that's mentioned, it's interesting in the list, is, it says in Leviticus 23 and verse 3, 6 days work may be done, but on the 7th day there must be a Sabbath of complete rest, a holy assembly. You must not do any work. It is a Sabbath to Yahweh. It is a Sabbath to Yahweh in all the places where you live. So it doesn't matter if you're in Jerusalem, in Israel, or in China, Africa, Europe, Latin America, or in the United States, or on an island somewhere. We keep the Sabbath. It's the 7th day. Now, how do we keep it? Or when is it? Is it from midnight to midnight, the way we calculate a day? Let's see how Sabbaths and days are even counted in the Bible from Yahweh's perspective, the way it has always been until the Gregorian times, when the calendar and calculating a day was changed. It says in the same chapter, Leviticus 23, and then jump down to verse 32. And this is talking about specifically about the Day of Atonement, but the Day of Atonement is one of the holy days. It's called Yom Kippur, which I'm sure you've heard of, and it tells us how we're to keep it. More specifically, it says in verse 32, it is a Sabbath of complete rest for you, and you must humble yourselves on the 9th day of the month. In the evening, from evening until evening, you must observe your Sabbath. You see, this is considered a Sabbath too. It's not the 7th day of the week Sabbath. It's a high annual Sabbath. It's a yearly Sabbath. It comes up once a year. It's a day of complete fast. But it tells us that you're to keep it from evening to evening. So when does evening start? At sunset. And that's how the day is calculated, from sunset to sunset. And that goes for all days, including the Sabbath. So now let's take a look at in Matthew 12 of one episode that happened on the Sabbath. It says in Matthew 12 and verse 1, at that time Yeshua went through the grain fields on a Sabbath. His disciples were hungry, and they began to pick heads of wheat and eat them. But when the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is against the law to do on the Sabbath. He said to them, he being Yeshua, haven't you read what David did when he went and his companions were hungry? When he and his companions were hungry, how he entered the house of Yahweh, and they ate the sacred bread, which was against the law for him or his companions to eat, but only for the priests? Or have you not read in the law that the priests in the temple desecrate the Sabbath and yet are not guilty? I tell you that something greater than the temple is here. If you had known what this means, I want mercy and not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the innocent. For the Son of Man is master of the Sabbath. People lose track or lose their way when it comes to the Sabbath or many of Yahweh's laws. His laws are there for our good. They're for everyone's good. They're to make the world a better place. They're not things to tie us down, to make us miserable. Now, like I said, the Sabbath is kept from sunset to sunset. Every minute of the Sabbath is holy time. So should we work on the Sabbath for 5 minutes at the beginning or for 1 minute even at the end of it? No, not at all. The Sabbath is 100%, 24 hours, holy time. It's time that we should appreciate, we should rest, we should relax, we should be with Yahweh, we should pray to Him, read His Word, listen to His Word, talk to each other about His Word, His plans. Enjoy the day, relax, rest, not be bound to our job or work, answering the phone, worrying about how we're paying bills or whatever our cares and worries are in our life. We really shouldn't worry about those things anyway, but on the Sabbath is the day when we're free from everything. Don't you see? He's setting us free. He's giving us a day to relax, to enjoy ourselves. These Pharisees, they wanted to tie them up and say, no, you can't even pick some wheat or an apple or a piece of fruit on the Sabbath to enjoy your time where you're out walking. Some people think you can't go for a very long walk on the Sabbath. They were out taking a stroll. They were walking around. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and do your power walking on the Sabbath. Leave that for the other 6 days. But it should be an enjoyable day, a day to study His Word, to be with each other. And right here it says He's the master of that day. Yeshua is the master of the Sabbath. We are His brothers. He says, I want mercy, not sacrifice. Can we understand that Yahweh wants mercy? Can we have mercy one with another, with each other, to have mercy and not you have to sacrifice? Like you see in some movies and you hear about the Catholics when they would flagellate themselves, whip themselves, and beat themselves. Yahweh doesn't want us to suffer. We're probably going to have to suffer, but He doesn't want that. He wants us to. He has mercy on us, and He wants us to be able to show mercy with each other, one with the other. So do a search all about the Sabbath. Read up on it, study it, and you'll see that the Sabbath is a wonderful day. It's a fun day. It's the first of all the feasts and holy days. It's a day to have special food, have special studies, play games with your kids on that day, special time with them. Make it a great day, because it really is. Yeshua always had a good time on that day. He taught, He healed people on that day. He did good things on that day, and all of Yahweh's law is good. It's good for us, and it's that we could do good for others. It never tells us to do something bad. So enjoy the day. I hope your next Sabbath is filled with peace, and you can say to the person that you're with, Shabbat Shalom.